All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome. It is Wednesday. It's 4:30 p.m. Central Time. It's 11:30 p.m. Swedish time where I am at the moment, but it is time for office hours. And this is where you can learn about updates in our little industry, as well as asking questions on pretty much anything on MDT, ConfigMgr, Intune, Microsoft, Windows, yeah, all of that stuff. Let's roll the intro. All right. Hello, Andrew. How are you?
I am doing well, and you?
Pretty good. I'm glad we got able to stitch this together so we can do it even though I'm traveling this week. Very, very happy for that.
I am as well. Traveling is going well. Everything went smooth.
Yeah, the trip was nice. I'm just jet lagged. It's just woke up this morning and could not fall asleep.
Yeah, you're in a little bit of a different time zone than when I talked with you yesterday, I would say.
Yeah, that's true.
Just about halfway around the world.
Barely. Yeah.
Good. Well, I'm glad that everything went smoothly, and I'm very happy that you were still able to hop on here today.
Sounds good.
All right.
Up the questions windows. We have that one ready. So what have you been up to?
So mostly, we've been talking. We've been talking a little bit the last few weeks about the technical takeoff event that Microsoft put on last week. Was still going on when we met last week, but I finally had some time to catch up on a couple of sessions that I found very interesting. If you'd like to share my screen.
I should be able to do that.
All right. Thank you, sir. So the first one here was the What's New in Active Directory session. And this was pretty cool, I thought, because as they start out with in this session here, as it turns out, I don't know if you know this, Johan, but Active Directory is in fact not dead yet.
I've heard.
Yes, and in fact still quite very widely used. So there are some updates that they're making to Active Directory that under the hood that were really exciting. So we'll have a new functional level for the first time in nearly a decade, when 2016 functional level came out. And some of the highlights here. Obviously, I recommend, if you're using Active Directory in your environment or in your lab or whatever, go check out this session. It's a great session. But the Active Directory database has long had an 8K page size, so your user objects you were always limited to that size. That is being increased to 32K, so you'll be able to store quite a bit more information right within a single object. There's some new performance counters for those that are using LDAP. So there's some LDAP client performance counters, as well as LSA lookups. And locating domain controllers actually is changing for, I believe, the first time. I don't want to say ever, but for the first time in a while, Microsoft is disabling wins and mail slots, which I had never even heard of mail slots until watching this session. Judging by the look on your face, you're familiar with the term.
Mail slots, no. Wins, yes.
Oh, okay. Apparently, maybe this was just something that was very, very under the covers. But basically, the way that clients are discovering domain controllers is going to be much improved. And they talk about some of the details in this as well. So I don't want to take away too much of the thunder of the session itself. As well as TLS 1.3 is coming to LDAP, which is pretty exciting, and some other LDAP security enhancements that are happening here. And the
busy.
oh, sorry.
So
What's that?
They have been busy.
Yes, very busy. And one of the last features that was really interesting, I'm curious to see how this gets rolled out, were delegated managed service accounts. So they are described as similar to a group managed service account, but you'll be able to take, we have a lot of applications. I know I do. I'm sure many of you have applications that actually require an AD user object as a service account. These new delegated managed service accounts seem to work more closely uh, like a managed identity or an app registration or something like that, um, in Azure AD is the gist of how I understood it. And whatever they're doing here on the back end, you'll be able to take a regular user object that's being used as a service account and transition it to this type of service account without having to adjust the application itself, which is very interesting. Like I said, I want to see how that looks in practice. But anything we can do to start securing those service accounts and keep people from storing passwords and their automation and things like that, I think is a good thing. And I think I could speak for you and say that you would agree with that.
I would, yes, indeed.
Um, I also watched this session here, the latest on managing Windows Update in Microsoft Intune. I was thinking of you while I was watching this session, Johan, because they talked about some of the improvements that are coming to the driver and firmware servicing features. One of the things that they specifically called out is that many people are assigning driver update policies to basically groups that are models of devices, right? So we've talked about that on here before. I happen to have some Dell Optiplex 3060s here in my lab. And so I assign driver update policies to a group of Dell Optiplex 3060s. Well, what they talk about in this session is that was never their intention. That's just the way that we're using them now to make up for some features that haven't been rolled out yet. And that was the driver applicability rules that are going to be coming. And so what that means is when you go into driver updates, the driver update policies right now, there's some information that's lacking. We don't necessarily see which models or devices a driver is going to be applicable to, and this is going to be rolling out here in the future. That was a big one. As well as they gave a very nice explanation too on the onboarding timeline and steps that come through. Let's see if I can pull up that chart real quick. Sort of the steps that are taken as a device onboards into driver and firmware servicing. Here we go. And the timeline that it can take. There's, as I think they mentioned here, there's a lot of confusion on how long this can take or when these events happen. So I really appreciated that they took a few minutes here to talk through the details of that. The last highlight I saw in this session was the quality update distribution report that is going to be rolling out. So this is a native built-in report in Intune that really gives you a lot more detail on the specific updates that have been rolled out in your environment, as well as which devices have those updates and which are missing it. So it adds for some very nice drill downs, and from what I saw here in the session, much better reporting natively built into the admin center than we have today. So really great stuff. This is stuff that Johan and I talk about frequently on office hours and in our Intune courses. So really exciting to see what's coming down the pipeline. Again, highly recommend checking out not only these sessions. We've just talked a little bit about some of the things some of the sessions that were highlights for us. But check out that technical takeoff event. There's some really, really cool stuff that's coming down the pipe that I think we're excited about. So,
Indeed.
that's what I had.
All right. I have a few things. First, obviously, something that I'm very happy to share, and I'm gonna steal that one and put away that screen. Obviously, most of you know that I have a home also with 2 software these days, and we were joined earlier this week by Michael Niehaus to the team. So now we have the full band together from the old MDT team. We have Keith Garner, we have Tim Mentner, and now we have Michael Niehaus. So quite the knowledge combined there is quite impressive. So very happy to have us joined by Michael. So if you haven't heard it before, Michael, welcome very much.
Very exciting news. That is definitely quite the team that they've put together over there, with you included. That's fantastic.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. The other one was, we talked a little bit about last week about the Twitter thread that was going on regarding a pretty much unknown limit in the ConfigMgr client cache. And that the fact is that using the native client settings or using the SDK components that COM object through so either client settings like I'm showing here, or COM object that you can use to set it, you cannot go above 99,999 megabits. That simply won't work. The UI will let you set it, but it will not actually set it. And then, of course, it didn't take long until Mike Koster and a few others chimed in that, you know what, if you ditch that and set it completely through WMI, you can set it much higher. So in this example here, I had a dynamic script that was setting the variable. This is one of the benefits, of course, of using a configuration baseline or something like that. But you can bump it up to a lot more than 100 gig. In that Twitter thread, there was one customer, they had it set to 450 gigabytes because they were pre-caching a lot of content for OS deployment. You need to have a pretty big image if you need a 450 gig cache, but that's what they had. So that was cool. Another workaround that we mentioned this workaround last week, if you only need to download stuff, you can completely bypass the ConfigMgr client cache. You can have a task sequence that downloads something elsewhere. So in this example here, I'm just downloading to a custom path. And sure enough, that packet will show up in that folder without touching the client cache and not being affected by any of its restrictions. So a few different versions of the script that sets the cache, and just some more there. Client service needs to be restarted. If you want to do that, you have to do that. But other than that, it works just fine.
Very cool.
Do we have any questions?
We do. We have a few questions that have come in.
All right.
So we've got a question from, we've got a couple hellos, Dennis and Matt. Hello, nice to see you all. So Dennis is asking here on YouTube, I just added a third-party subcatalog, HP, but the updates aren't showing up in the all updates node. Could you go through high-level third-party catalogs in SCCM?
It's been a while since I did that. I will have to prepare that a little bit. I don't have anything ready I can show today. Long story short, though, the quality of those catalogs are often very, very limited or not good. So most customers I work with that try to use these third-party catalogs has more or less given up on them. You kind of need to have quality catalogs like the one from PatchMyPC, etc., and they don't really have that type of content in them at the moment. but we can definitely scramble together some data to it. I believe SCUP was also announced being deprecated, but thankfully ConfigMgr doesn't depend on that anymore for third-party updates. They fixed that in, what release that was. It wasn't too long ago, a few years back. They added in native third-party catalog support. So I have to come back to that one, or we have to come back to that one.
All right. All right. Kurt is on here asking over on YouTube. I'm learning about the Intune management tool and recommending it to my team for copying policies for an Intune test tenant to a brand new Intune production tenant. I need to recommend the least privileges for reading and writing to Microsoft Graph to my team needed to export and import the policies. Would that be the application administrator Microsoft Entra directory roles rather than just the global administrator? I can actually take that one if you want, Johan.
Go ahead.
So Kurt's talking about Michael Carlson's Intune management tool here. On if you want to switch over to my screen, I have it up as well.
Well, when I find our studio window, I only have a laptop with me, and the screen estate is tad limited.
You didn't bring a big 32-inch monitor with you or anything like that?
No, it's been frowned upon if you try to have it as a carry-on luggage.
Yeah, so, and I've seen how light you pack impressively. I would have guessed that you wouldn't have brought a gigantic monitor with you.
Did not. Unless it was a foldable one, maybe possible, but I haven't seen one of those yet.
That's not bad. All right, so this is the tool that Kurt is asking about here. It's a fantastic tool, PowerShell based, gives you a GUI here that allows you to interact with the Intune Admin Center basically through PowerShell. You can import policies and profiles. You can export them. You can document. We've shown this tool, I think, quite a few times here on Office Hours. So specifically for permissions on this, let me zoom in a little bit here. This will use the Intune PowerShell enterprise application in Azure AD, and it will only use the permissions that have been granted to that application. So this is here in the starting the app section of that documentation. And so it's not actually an Entra role or an Intune admin role that you're assigning to this, but rather application permissions assigned, specific permissions assigned to that application. So for example, if you wanted to allow it to read all of devices, you'd have to give it devices.read.all, very granular graph permissions. And what's more is right here, when you do sign into the app for the first time, if some of the permissions that the app requires are missing, you'll actually be prompted, you'll get the admin consent prompt that says, hey, this application is missing these permissions. Do you consent for those permissions to be granted to the application? So at that point, it should tell you what you're missing. So I hope that helps. Kurt, do you have anything to add there, Johan?
No, not at all. Spot on.
All right. All right. Matt is asking over here on YouTube, creating an ADR, then deploying the updates for servers. How to enforce the servers to reboot once they reach the deadline?
Well, those are basically the reboot settings on the deployment. Let's see what I have that I can show. Go ahead and share that screen again. Let's see if I can find something. So this screen coming through okay? Because I cannot see and share at the same time.
Yeah, the resolution drops a little bit here and there. At the moment, it's a little blurry, but I can see that you have Remote Desktop Connection Manager open, and there's a command prompt, and that looks like a ConfigMgr console.
All right, so let's see what we have here. Not sure if I have any. Oh, I may have a server update here. I may have created a software update group for. Yeah, that one looks okay. Deployment we can discuss, but on the deployment settings, here is a proposed deployment to a group or a pilot group. And in the deployment settings for this one, let me see, scheduling, here. This is where you have the deadline behavior. So should the system be able to restart a service, you have to check this checkbox. And that is when the deadline hits. So as long as you have that checkbox selected, if you have maintenance windows, these will be honored. It won't install updates during those unless you are within those maintenance windows. And the trick in general for maintenance windows, at least in my experience, is to make them long enough. So if I go to my software updates collection here, and here I have two with maintenance windows. As you can see here in these settings, there is a 4-hour window to make sure that there will never be an argument whether an update has time to install or not. Because ConfigMgr tries to figure out, okay, this update, how long will it take, and will it fit into deploy into that window? And these different collections with different maintenance windows, they are in turn included into my production collection. So I include those that have maintenance windows. I exclude the ones I had for my pilot deployments, and I exclude the collection that contains lists that are not supposed to be managed by ConfigMgr, or they have to be dealt with manually for whatever reason. But all in all, that would take care of deployments to servers. Obviously, I would have to take the same software update group and actually deploy it to my full service production collection, but the same settings would apply there. So hoping that will help.
All right. Chris is asking here on YouTube, is it worth replacing ConfigMgr task sequence with Autopilot hybrid join? My scenario is hardware vendor uploaded client info to Intune Autopilot and ships clients directly to end users and completes the Autopilot hybrid join. Task sequence does have line of business apps.
Well, Autopilot was never really designed to deploy a lot of applications during the enrollment. If you still have that need, sequences through a cloud management gateway is the only supported solution that Microsoft has for that environment. Now, Mike and Niehaus did put together a blog post just a few weeks back. Let's see if I can bring that one up. Where you can run old-fashioned MDT sequences through Autopilot as well, and then also kind of eliminates the restrictions that you have to run multiple applications, because the sequence will run as a single app, but the sequence in turn will deploy a bunch of other apps depending on how many you add to the sequence and generate the media and all that stuff. But it's, as usual, it's worth noting that Autopilot is definitely not deploying or deployment. It's if you have the need to do break fixes or deploy at least some devices in-house every now and then, you need to have a deployment solution around, or keep one around. And the only one that Microsoft supports for that at the moment is the Cloud Management Gateway. MDT is unfortunately about to be removed eventually or deprecated from they haven't announced any new support agreement. They only have what's in the release notes and documentation, and that is a text saying as long as there is an operating system that MDT supports still in maintenance, like maintenance mode or maintenance, what is it called? Maintenance support or main support. I forgot the term is. The other one is extended. Mainstream support, that's the word I'm looking for.
Sorry.
As long as there are operating system that MDT supports, that is in mainstream support from Microsoft, MDT will be supported. Unfortunately, the last one on that list is Windows Server 2019 that goes out of mainstream support next month. So what has been published so far, it basically means that, all right, MDT will be unsupported next month. If Microsoft will remove it from the downloads, I do not know. If they will reissue a new statement about that later, I do not know. But the future for MDT, unfortunately, looks a bit grim. It makes me very, very sad. But that's just the supported side. It still works. It will work equally good today and as in 10 years for the same type of deployment. Doesn't depend on the cloud service or anything like that. It's just deployment. Scripts that applying their image, injecting drivers, installing apps. That script will run equally good in a while from now. The bigger concern might be around, okay, what happens when Microsoft actually drops VBScript completely away from Windows? Well, when that happens, I don't know when. It's still in the latest version of Windows 11, but they have announced the deprecation that they will at some point. Then the MDT as we know it won't work because it relies on it. Then you have to use either the PSD extension to MDT that replaces all the VB scripts with PowerShell, or you have to use something else. And again, ConfigMgr is the only platform that Microsoft supports for it. So, long rant on a short question.
It's a lot of required reading, I think, when we talk about Autopilot Hybrid. Definitely.
Yeah, definitely.
Great answer. Thank you. All right. Looks like Kurt was just following up on his Intune management error that he's seeing, and so what he's talking about is he's getting the admin approval for the enterprise application, basically. So that's that consent flow. Need admin approval, needs permissions to access resources in your organization that only an admin can grant. Please ask an admin to grant permission to this app before you can use it. And prior to that, he did say he had used PIM to elevate his account to Intune admin. And for this, Kurt, you'll need, I don't know that it's full global admin rights, but you'll actually need the rights over Entra ID itself. So the Intune admin, I don't think will be enough to grant that. Well, obviously won't be enough to grant the permissions to that application because the application is trying to access things outside of Intune. So it would have to be either global admin for sure. I know could grant the permissions to that application. I'm not sure if there's a lower role that would allow for that.
All right. Anything else?
Matt is asking how to use SCCM or in an Intune script to deploy the client to change the Office channel registry key from semi-annual to current.
Thought we shared something about that a little while ago in one of the earlier office hours.
Well, I did talk about using the servicing profiles was one method. Let's see if I can find something else here. not coming up with anything right away.
I found something from Anoop.
Okay.
Can at least share that link and see if that could be any help. So let me bring up my window here again. Is it still showing Michael's site here?
Yes, it is.
All right, let's see. So Anoop made a blog post last year where he created up a collection that's just basic stuff for Office. And then there was a PowerShell script mentioned here in the bottom of this post that would change that update channel for Office. And if this script works, since this script obviously was tested in ConfigMgr, you're running a system, you should have the ability to run the same script as either a remediation action or a run script action, or not run script, a scripts action or feature in Intune as well, because they also run a system in the background. So the only thing you would have to comment out in the Intune case would be, of course, you can remove the trigger of the hardware inventory because it doesn't exist in Intune. So maybe that.
All right.
Maybe
Good
that.
find.
Thank you, sir. I know
you.
my Google.
That's the secret, isn't it?
Yeah.
Matt did ask, I missed a question from Matt a little bit ago. Do you have any plans this year to do any Christmas sessions? I think kind of like last year he's asking.
Yeah, we do. Decided not to do them the same way we did last year because that almost almost killed me. I was a little bit ambitious to do one video every day for a month. So we decided on doing the traditional 20 days after Christmas that actually start on the 25th. We won't record the session on the 25th. I will record it a few days early because otherwise I don't think I will survive Christmas at all. But then going forward, the next day, following that in 12 days until the January 5th, I'm planning on having a video every day. That is the plan.
All right. Very exciting.
Yep. And for those people who are new to what the concept is, sorry there, Andrew.
No, that's okay.
This is up on the Deployment Research YouTube channel. Last year, we did all those short videos on a given topic for like 5, 10, 15 minutes maybe. So yeah, I'll take requests, put it that way. So
that was eye-opening. Working on one of them, like you said, they're 5, 10, maybe. I think mine was 15 minutes, maybe even. It's a lot more behind the scenes than that 15 minutes that ends up getting posted.
Oh yeah, some of them took hours to do. It's like but yeah, I don't have too much customer work booked between Christmas and New Year's and shortly after, so I figured, all right, this will be a greater, better.
All right,
that's the plan.
Well, I may have to join you for one of those.
Yeah, rumors are you're fleeing the States. Some of those days.
That is true.
Yeah,
that is true. I've had enough of the cold already. I'm getting out of here.
I see. I hear you. No, but yeah, I would love if you can join any of the days where you are back on track. That would be cool.
Sounds good.
Is that a promise?
Yes, it is. You can hold me to that. There's videographic evidence of it now.
Oh yeah, I have witnesses. Yes.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it. I always enjoy those.
Sounds good.
I did have a follow-up comment just from Dennis earlier. He was asking about the HP third-party catalog, and I missed this comment. Trying to manage BIOS updates a little bit better with the HP fleet. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah, no, not really that a lot.
Okay.
I have yet to meet the company that has been able to do that successfully using that catalog. It might be doable. I just haven't seen it. I would use like modern driver management, or I would use the new functionality in Intune to do driver and firmware management, because that obviously works for HP as well.
All right. Yeah, and those tools, well, we know modern driver management works very well, and so far the driver and firmware servicing in Intune has been fairly promising, I think.
Yeah, I mean, most of the customers I work with, they have it set up. Am I still sharing my screen, by the way?
Yes, sure.
All right, thank you. They will have things set up, so you're using that driver automation tool to download all packages for given models, either drivers or BIOS or both. They in turn will turn up into packages here in the ConfigMgr. I did not create these packages. That PowerShell script did. That is the driver automation tool, as well as all the driver packages. And the cool thing about that tool is that Maurice recently posted the source code for it, or the original PowerShell script, because it's just a compiled, scripted to an exe file. Let's see here. So if we go to Modern Driver Management and go to the download of the tool, and you head over into the current branch and then into this one here, the 722 version, you can see here is the actual code. And this is it's a fairly large PowerShell script. But if you're ever interested in building a GUI in PowerShell, this is a great script. And I mean, it's barely 20,000 lines of code, so you read through it quickly. That's a big PowerShell script.
Maybe something to do on your flight home.
That will do. Yeah.
Follow-up question on this. Can we use Intune if we have not moved any workloads into Intune?
I have only tried this after also having the software update workload moved or standalone Intune. I don't know if that's a requirement. I probably would be, because the client will scan. And if it scans against ConfigMgr, obviously the deployment service that Microsoft has will not be asked unless it's told to ask it. So I think the software updates workload is a requirement, but I'm not 100% sure. I have not tested.
Yeah, same. I mean, I would agree. Certainly, the only times that I've done it are when I have co-management enabled and the update workload is moved. I would expect that to be a requirement.
I can see if we can find something real quick. Find drivers into software update. I can't even type. Update workload requirements. Yeah, this one was pretty clear. Right here. You also need to enable co-management and assign the Windows Update workload to Intune or to Pilot Collection where you have your devices. So to me, this reads as if you are using ConfigMgr and co-management, you need to load that workload and able to use this.
All right. Well, we do have a couple of questions. I haven't forgotten about those, but Dennis had one last follow-up.
Wait. Oh. Look at the first line up here. This text kind of contradicts a little bit.
So you have to.
So this is a fairly new policy. They made some changes around that like this summer for Windows 11. We can have different type of updates come from different sources. Possibly. I think we'll have to get back on that one and do some testing.
Yeah.
It's funny, this policy, by the way, I was chatting with one of our students Monday, at some point Monday before I left. There have been cases where this policy being missing have caused ConfigMgr clients to not find any updates for Windows 11 devices. So a customer will have like hundreds of Windows 11 machines, and it will deploy to maybe 3 of them. But the moment I set this policy, it kicked in right away. There were a good few Reddit threads on that as well last week. So there seem to be some scenarios where this policy does not get set correctly and simply bumping in the registry key, or set the equivalent group policy because it exists as a group policy, or the Intune CSP for the same will do the trick. But there were some scenarios where it, for whatever reason, did not get set.
Interesting, to say the least.
Yeah, I think I forwarded you that thread at some point. Maybe I didn't.
It's this week has been a bit of a blur.
Yeah. So anyhow.
All right. Well, before I hop over to these other questions, Dennis had one last follow-up while we're on the topic. If you weren't using Modern Driver Management or Intune today, which would you pick to go with?
If the customer is having ConfigMgr, I would probably, if they were still actively using ConfigMgr for it, I would continue to use that for the driver and BIOS update because it's so much more well proven and has more basically features and functionality for it. If your customer do not have ConfigMgr, it's a no-brainer. Then it only leaves that option available. I like the better information you get about the drivers when you have them in ConfigMgr. If there is still a few things missing, I mean, I can show you guys if I would go into my tenant here and well, I have to log in shortly here. In a while. Thinking about something, apparently. Here we are. So if I go to devices and I go to my driver updates here, I go to one of my models that I have and then check the drivers that are available for review for this model. I mean, I've been doing deployment all my life. I cannot really tell this one other hardware from, you know, the one below it. I might guess by parsing drivers for version numbers, whatever, but it's just so stupid that there are information about the drivers in the driver itself. Every INF file has a class it belongs to. It has a name, what driver it is. That information is not surfaced here yet. So makes it hard. I have to basically take a leap of faith and just approve them and see what happens. Firmware is easy. I mean, that's just pick the latest version and approve it. But the other stuff is more difficult.
Yeah, I think if you haven't had the opportunity to watch that Windows Update session that I was talking about, Johan, I think you'll be happy to see what's coming.
Oh, nice. Yeah, I have some. See if I can download them and watch them on my trip home. That would be nice.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
So great questions around drivers. I know that we can always get Johan going when we're talking about drivers.
May trigger my interest. Yeah.
All right. So Jamie's asking here where C Windows bginfo.bmp lives. Is this embedded within a DLL somewhere? I cannot find this within PE. I can add a background via SCCM, but the image step applies bginfo.bmp and refreshes on every step. Ideally, I want to stay away from third-party tools.
So it is indeed bginfo.exe that is getting called. Always, when you have that background info in WinB. So if I would go to one of my MDT integrated sequences, and again, this is quite likely to go away shortly. You will find these, there will be a step name and there will be a number. So it will say, see if I can find something clever. Yeah, set status 5. You can see it's calling this VB script that will set the background to 5 and pick image number 5. So this is a VB script that calls bginfo.exe and picks the image number 5, which is in the sources. So it's the settings. No, the MDT package. I have stored in this folder here. Tools. I think it's all in 32-bit images. Nope. Here. So you can see there is a .bge for every number and a bitmap for did not mean to do that. A bitmap for every number. So, and we have customers that have increased this to more numbers. So they have like 10, 12, 13 different images that they rotate through. We do the same thing in PSD. We call the bginfo.exe for that. We kind of have a hidden little feature in PSD. There is an alternate background that you can activate. We haven't blogged about it much or anything, but it's there. So that's just a pure PowerShell window that sits behind that progress bar. And that one doesn't require any third party. It's just pure PowerShell. So no, and I would say bginfo is a third party, but it does require bginfo. Yeah, long story short.
Look like Jamie just made a follow-up comment. I'm talking about SCCM PE with SMS.
Yeah, so the sequence I showed was ConfigMgr there, using bginfo to change those backgrounds. There are some other community solutions that does the same if you're looking for something different. We have our friends over at OneWin. You can go to Jörgen's blog for it. No, I can go to OneWin directly, I think. There's a TS background component somewhere. Here, this one. So it's just maybe a little bit hard to see, but it's a quite elegant alternative to what's default in the ConfigMgr WinPE boot image. It has a more like almost like an Azure type look, and the progress bar is not showing on top of it. It's actually embedded inside of the image together with some information about the device. So elegant solution, free to download and use. Yeah, maybe that can be helpful. All right. There was a question. Did you see the question from Jesse there in YouTube regarding the USB policies?
Yes, I'm sorry. I was sitting here talking, and for some reason I had muted myself. Classic mute button.
Yeah, double muted. Yeah.
Yes. Is there any way to test USB policies such as blocking read or write, etc., on guest hosts in Hyper-V?
So I mean, you can attach a disk that is a pass-through disk. I remember doing that back in the days when Windows to Go was a thing. So we needed to test those Windows to Go sticks, so we didn't want to have an extra physical device to test them with. Passing it through to the VM would possibly trigger the same settings as plugging it into a physical device. But I can't say I have tested in a good while. Not even sure that feature exists in Hyper-V anymore.
Well, and I would say, so this is getting a little out of our area. I have not done that, and I think to your point, the only pass through that I think Hyper-V does or did are storage devices. Recently, I was looking at, so I run Home Assistant in a Hyper-V VM, and with Home Assistant, you can add some dongles that allow you to use Bluetooth or Z-Wave or something like that with Home Assistant directly. And that question has come up, and it sounded like it was restricted to only what you just said, Johan, storage USB pass-through. So if it is something else, and I don't know how that presents itself to the VM.
So those USB sticks, they were actually flagged by Windows as a fixed disk. There were special hard USBs that were made for Windows to Go, so Windows would think it was a local fixed disk, even though it technically was a USB stick. Mm-hmm. I know that if you attach just another SCSI drive, that can show up as a like removable media because you can eject it. But I don't think those USB policies will kick in there. I'm afraid you will have to test on physical devices. But I mean, you can go ahead on eBay and buy a used Dell 3120 for like $200 and use that as your policy test machine or something like that. I have a few of those.
Yeah.
VMware might be a better option because VMware has a richer support for USB than Hyper-V does, VMware Workstation. Not sure about Proxmox and the others, but for virtual box. But VMware definitely have rich USB support. Yeah.
Awesome. All right. And the question that I was trying to read while I was muted was Matt had asked if we can deploy the SCCM client via Intune.
Absolutely, yes.
Yeah.
There is ready-made integration in the Autopilot where you set up Autopilot to have Autopilot installed at the agent during enrollment. That would bring that machine into a co-managed state, by the way, which is nice. Technically, you can deploy it as an application too.
Win32 app.
Yeah.
Yep.
That's what we had to do before this feature was made available. Just don't do it together with Autopilot in that case.
Yep, exactly.
And that feature is the one that we have here. And if you go to enroll devices, there is an option to set up co-management for ConfigMgr. And if you have this one configured, it will go ahead, and this one is not assigned, but it will install it from your cloud management gateway. All right.
All right. Well, Matt also said thank you both, and Johan, have a safe trip back home.
All right. Thank you. Appreciate it.
And just like that, I swear I have not looked at the clock in an hour, and we are at 5:29 in some odd seconds.
All right. Brilliant. It's yeah, it's a bit it's bedtime.
Yes. I've got a little bit longer, but I think it's probably time for you to get some rest.
I'll do my very best. All right. Everyone, thank you so much for joining. Thank you for the many good questions. And we certainly hope to see you guys back next week again.
Thanks, everybody. Have a great rest of your week.
All right. Let's see if I can find the streaming window again.
It's got to be there somewhere.
It was hiding. And we will not play the outro.
That's right.
Here we are.